Happy Monday, July 11th, 2022. We'll open the village board with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will Clerk Colhagen call roll?
Doxey.
Aye.
Washburn.
Aye.
Bhatia.
Here.
Hewitt.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Anastasio.
Here.
DeGroot.
He's here. So we're going to roll into the 2021 audit presentation. We have Baker Tilly here, and I'm just going to turn it over to Administrator just to give us a little background on why the audit is necessary in the first place, and you can introduce our guest.
Sure. Actually, Mike, would you like to? This is an audit of our financials. We do have Paul, I'm going to forget the last name, Franz, from Baker Tilly here. If you recall, the last time we had Wendy. Thank you. That's great. Say the first name and he comes up with the last. Yeah, exactly. I'm too relaxed. Here for us last year, but each and every year we have our financials looked at to make sure that our finance department is functioning well and that we're making sure that our accounts are balanced and all the money is where it's supposed to be. So this really is an audit, or as Mike likes to refer to it, a colonoscopy for the finance department. So without further ado, I think Paul is here to present it. It was in your packet. By the way, the packet is made public every Monday at noon. So the citizens, should they wish to join you in the task of reading this, have had the opportunity to do so at about noontime today.
Well, thank you for that introduction. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, just a little closer.
A little closer. All right. Thank you. That's all right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thanks for having me. My name is Paul France. I'm a partner in our Milwaukee Baker Tilly office, and I'm here tonight on Wendy Unger's behalf. She's out, had a conflict, and so I am going to present your financial results for the 12/31/2021 audit cycle. So, as Maureen alluded to, in your packets were two documents in draft format, one being the financial statements for 12/31/21, and then the audit result letter with the fancy marketing cover on it. Also included in the packet is a handout and is on the screen that summarizes the two documents. I'll use that to walk you through the results. So our audit objective was to express an opinion on the financial statements and that financial statement document as of December 31st, 2021. We plan to issue an unmodified opinion, also known as a clean bill of health. When you hire an external auditor, that's the outcome you're looking to hear. What that tells you is that within that financial statement document, all necessary disclosures have been made, all necessary governmental accounting pronouncements have been adopted, and all accounting principles and procedures have been followed in preparation of that document. So again, the outcome that you're looking to hear, it's the highest level of assurance that we can give you. On the next slide here, just some high-level financial results for the year. I'll start in the first column, the general fund, the main operating fund for the village. About $22.6 million of revenues and other sources. About $22.3 million in expenditures. When you put together your 2021 budget, you had a balanced budget. You had about $23 million earmarked for expenditures, so you came in under budget in expenditures. So when you net everything together, you had a net income, a positive gain to the fund balance of just about $300,000. So ended the year with about $9.2 million of fund balance. Fund balance can fall into a number of different categories. In the general fund, you have two. The first being non-spendable fund balance, and what that tells you is that's activity that has not had an income statement effect yet, but will in future years. So we earmark that aside so you can see your true picture of your reserves in the general fund, and that's shown in the unassigned category. Just about $9 million in that unassigned category. So a lot of times I get the question, is $9 million a good number to have in reserves? We look to have our clients somewhere between 10 to 25%, and I should say at least 10 to 25% of your budget. So as I mentioned earlier, about $23 million budget, $9 million sitting in unassigned fund balance, so you're about 39%, almost 40%. So healthy financial position, not bad to be over. What it's important to know is when you get over that percentage, just to make sure you have a plan of are we going to use that money in future years, or is that the level that we feel comfortable that we need to have in our reserves? Make sure you're having that conversation. But ultimately, $9 million is not too much or too little. You have good funds on hand to cover the necessary operations, with the ebbs and flows of the revenue in the government space that comes in at different points during the year. Next column, there's the debt service fund. This houses all the village related debt transactions. Ultimately, really an in and out fund, though you do have about $1.3 million of fund balance in that fund. It's restricted for future debt payments. So if you wanted to pay additional in principal or during a refinancing transaction, bring some additional funds on hand, you do have fund balance in the debt service fund to use for that purpose. The other major fund that you have is TID number 5, the Capital Project Fund. About $19 million of restricted fund balance for that specific TID capital purpose in TID 5. Last column, non-major governmental funds. You have 24 non-major funds that make up the almost $19 million of fund balance. And so in that draft financial statement, all the way in the back, the last 8 or 9 pages, in there will give you the detail around those special revenue funds, the capital project funds, in detail of how that is. Each one of those funds has a specific revenue source and a specific purpose on how that money will be spent, but you'll see the classifications as far as how much money is available in those funds in those part of the draft financial statements. On to the next page, just a quick look at the sewer utility. I had a positive year in operations, about $1 million in the difference between operating revenues and expenditures. What that tells me is that ultimately your rates in place are covering the operating costs of that. Doesn't necessarily factor in what capital requirements might come in the future. And so always good to be talking around what's coming down the line as far as infrastructure and other capital requirements in there to make sure we're proactive in our rates discussions. But at least from an operational standpoint, no concerns that I can note there. And nothing else to note here. I guess the only thing I would mention, and I'd point you to the specific statements, the proprietary statements in there. There isn't a fund balance number here. When we talk about a sewer utility, it functions under what we call full accrual accounting. And so I can't point to the reserve of what sits in the sewer fund. Ultimately look to see what's sitting in cash, and that will tell you the ultimate reserves, but it isn't looking in the same spot in the statements. Find the unrestricted cash for that fund, and it ultimately will tell you. Any questions from a financial statement standpoint? Otherwise, I'll briefly talk about the audit results letter. And if you want more time to think, I can go all the way through my presentation too, and then you can hit me at the end. Okay, I'll keep going. I see heads nodding. We did issue or plan to issue 2 material weaknesses. This is consistent with the material weaknesses that we've communicated in the past. And truthfully, all I do is audit governments throughout the year. I work with about 70 different communities. 90 to 95% of my clients receive the same material weaknesses. Okay, so the 2 weaknesses that have been given to the village are one around lack of segregation of duties in building account reconciliations. Just again, from an operational standpoint and size, to have the appropriate checks and balances, there's a cost-benefit analysis that's done. It doesn't necessarily, in us communicating this to you, it isn't our pitch that you need to spend more money on staff. It's more or less that you are aware that there are shortcomings in the control structure so that you, as the governing body, can have a certain level of due diligence in the information that management provides. So, not a concern, just something to be aware of. Secondly, the other material weakness That financial statement document, we play a key role in preparing that document, meaning that you don't currently have somebody on staff that's specialized in governmental accounting, a CPA that focuses strictly on preparing financial statements. We do this again for 90 to 95% of our clients. Because we do it, we're more effective and quick at it, and from a cost benefit standpoint, it makes sense to just have it outsourced. We have to bring that to your attention, and there are professional standards, just so you're aware of that. Again, not asking for you to do anything different, just to be aware, okay? That letter also serves as we think forward to the 2022 audit. It lays out our timing when we go through our planning phases in that audit, which is really from the October to December time is really when we're building our audit procedures and doing some preliminary work. We include some, I guess this is the auditor joke now, thought-provoking questions in there, but really what we're getting at is if you have things that you would like us as an auditor to do differently, kick the tires harder on, this is the window of time when we'd like to have that conversation with you. It can start now, it can start, as long as we get it in advance of really that window of time. But if it comes after that, we always adapt to too. Okay? There are some other comments and recommendations that are in that letter that I'll let stand in there, more policy type things to consider as we move forward. Lastly, there are some required communications that we have to have with you that we choose to put in writing. In there, this highlights any new accounting principles that were adopted during the course of the year, which there were none of a material nature to note. We list out any accounting estimates that we evaluated during the course of the audit that are included in that financial statement. They're all clear, neutral, and non-bias, meaning they're okay to be in there. We list out any non-attest services that we do as the auditors. Non-attest being anything that's not the audit. We just need to ultimately make you aware of that. And ultimately, each time we do a non-attest item, have to determine if we're still independent. Because at the end of the day, in order to give you the opinion that we have or will, which is that unmodified opinion, we have to be able to determine at the end of the day that we're independent, which I'm happy to say we are. So there's one final step with the audit process that will lead this to issue. So while you do see it in draft, I don't anticipate any significant changes. If any, we're waiting on an attorney letter. We do evaluate that at the end of the audit to make sure there's no legal things that need to be noted in the financial statements, but don't anticipate anything to be in there that isn't already in there. So with that, that's all my prepared remarks. I'm happy to answer questions that you may have for me.
Before the board asks questions, I just wanted Mr. Bond to weigh in. What's your thoughts regarding the audit itself, the preparation you went through, surprises along the way, that sort of thing?
Yeah, to be honest, it was a pretty smooth audit this year, considering it was our second year with Baker Tilly. They were great to work with. There wasn't any kind of nothing too crazy that really came up in the audit that I thought. I was happy to see that we had a net income of $300,000 to return to the general fund. Really kind of pretty straightforward and not too bad this year. I look forward to working with Wendy and her team in the future and just continuing to plug away and be the best financial team in all of the land.
Oh, my.
Including the Hubble telescope?
And to that point, I did talk to Wendy about the audit process from her perspective, and nothing but, there's a spot in the letter that talks about disagreements with management, which of course we had none. You had heard about them long before this presentation if there was, but we received nothing but cooperation from management throughout the process. Was very efficient. And when you think about kind of where this process started 2 years ago, it's come quite a far way, and it's the vision of Maureen and you and the body and the individuals you put in management, it speaks. You've come a far way from an outsider who isn't involved in the day-to-day aspects. I can see it and I'm hearing it in the office, so thank you.
As you recall, the night that I was hired, it was the same night that the auditor was making their presentation, and that was November of 2017. You know that it is July. This is about the time, June, the end of June, beginning of July, so now we're in keeping with all of our neighbors. I think the last year was pretty good. I don't remember exactly which month it was. Were we looking at, I think it was July, wasn't it, also? The couple of audits in between 2017 and last year, we were talking about competing with Packer games for this exciting audit presentation. So it's nice that we're on track with, back on track. That's a good way to describe it. We're back on track.
Yeah, and it means that you got good financial information at your fingertips throughout the year.
Andrew, you had something?
This is my second audit, and I will tell you, the first one, I glazed over, and I was kind of scared. So, but one of the things that I did read this one, tried to read it very thoroughly, and what I'm realizing now is what an important tool it is as we work towards our budgeting coming up in the fall. And the meetings that staff is gonna have, now that we have this presentation put together, as you say, Maureen, in a timely basis, it really allows us to continue to move forward through that. And in reading it, although I realize you've already made the statements, but I was very pleased to see that there were many notations of, we noted no transactions entered for which accounting policies were controversial. Again, the helpfulness of the staff, the organization of the staff. And when you talked about your internal control matters, this again is through December 31st of 2021. Since then, we've added Mary, Heather's come on. So hopefully, those are key people for Mike. They were brought on, and specifically, we were targeting human resources as well as the finance department. So even though I'm not sure we can really get through that comment completely, I'm hoping, it'll be interesting to see if that comment changes for, no pressure guys, but if that comment changes for 2022. But all in all, I'm very pleased to see with the way the village has run financially. Very pleased to see the general fund and the total in cash reserves that we have at the end of the year being in that high percentage rate. And some of my curiosities, and maybe this really has more to do with budgeting than it does your presentation tonight, are gonna be, you talked about we're kind of at that peak end of that 39%. So my question is, what are some of the things that we would want to use that general fund for? What are we able to use it for? As we've learned through the budget process, we can't use it for just everything. So I'm going to have probably more questions in that regard. But all in all, I was very pleased, and I really do compliment our staff and Maureen, and you all as well. Your firm does an excellent job. So.
The undesignated reserves, the one thing that you could use it for is for your capital projects. I mean, you want to use this for only one time only, so it doesn't create a hole in your future operating budgets. So,
Right.
but this year, I think we're going to be running very lean and with our budget, Mike and I. Think about how it is as you're putting together a budget. They've started. Our staff in the back are starting to work on the budget. They're meeting with department heads. Those meetings are all coming up at the end of this month, beginning of next. So when you don't have an audit done and you don't know exactly where you are financially, imagine how do you do that? So that's how far we've come. We have good solid numbers, but again, if we're going to use any of that undesignated reserve, and it drives Mike crazy when we do this, even talk about using it, because remember, that's our rainy day fund. That's our savings account. But if we were to use any of that fund, it would be probably a recommendation from Mike and I to use it for cash, financing, capital. If we can, we may not even need to do that in this budget.
Well, yeah, and I think the past few years with COVID, it's been nice to have at that higher level. It's pretty much fluctuated between 35 and 40% for the past few years now. So with who knows what was going to happen with COVID, I think that was kind of an important number to have in there just in case.
This is really good. The more real that your numbers are at the end of the year, and the sooner you can confirm that they are real, the less surprises you have as you go through the budget process, and then even after the budget is confirmed and voted in. It just it just keeps the surprises down to a very small, manageable level. Go ahead.
I have a
And then-
question. Well, actually, I did page through almost every page and tried to understand it, but
Right before bed, right?
the section on the other post-employee benefits, I know that's a big deal, and so I was trying to determine, is this getting better or worse? But I wasn't, there were so many reports, and and it said planned fiduciary net position and blah, blah. And I'm thinking, are we kind of holding in place on this, improving? How do we stand in comparison to other municipalities? Or
Yeah.
is that not something that the auditor says?
Oh, yeah, I can certainly speak to it. I mean, it's an actuary determined liability, and there's a number of factors that go into what that liability could be in the future. And, you know, with modern medicine and folks living longer, that cost continues to increase, let alone just the cost in general of everything. So it's not a surprise to see the liability part of that calculation go up. Again, not overly familiar with the makeup of how we're funding that. If we have a trust fund established, which I'm
We
seeing
do.
some nodding of the head.
do.
So you are pre-funding, and stockpiling money into
We're
your
not there
fund.
yet, but we're ahead of a lot of other governments that just pretend as if it doesn't exist.
Well, I was going to tell you, most in the municipal space, I don't see a lot of trusts established. I have a number of school districts that have established trusts that pay for their OPEB, future costs. So you're ahead of the curve in the sense that you're building a balance to fund that future liability and paying as you go in the meantime. So it's not alarming, the information that I saw in there, that I would say that that you need to be aware of it.
And we did have a fiduciary come in and do the numbers for us. So we do have that report.
Good, thank you.
Of course.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, this is an audit, so I'm not going to go into the details of the numbers because, again, it's not a budget, it's an audit, but I want to make a comment that your conclusions of sound financial health, clean bill of health, that's the result of the leadership we have in place, and I like to quote our administrator and our director of the finance. I do remember, Breen, when I came on the board way back in 2018 and 19, the first audit, not only we were competing with the Packers, we had no idea if we were going to make any playoffs. We were probably going to be eliminated very soon. So there was some concern, and we have come a long way, and this is what happened when you not only when you put the leadership, but when you put the processes and the monitoring in place. So I'm very pleased to hear about that, because this is the validation of your financial health by an independent agency, so it's not our own. So,
And Mike, I think there's a person not in the room who's really largely a great helper to Mike, and that's Myra Sotelo. You remember Myra from the budget process.
Yeah.
So, and Fran Torres, of course, who does the accounts payable area. So we went from one accountant to three with Mike, and now Heather has an accounting background as well, and so does Myra. So we're and think of it, this is a time when people are having trouble filling those types of jobs, and we're doing very well. And I would kick it right back to Mike and the team. But thank you for the compliment, but it really is Mike.
under your leadership. Yeah. Mike's leadership, under your leadership. I mean, the whole, well, it's not only the leadership, but you put the process in place. I mean, it's run as a professional business. But I do have a question for Mike for clarification. I think I know
And
the
one
answer.
thing I wanted to add to that was I've only had one employee quit since I've been here, and that was Mary Cole, to fill a different.
1 out of 1, right?
Yeah, but she
No.
came back.
But I do have a question for Mike for clarification on page 3, like you presented. There's a TID 5 capital project fund, but there's a debt service fund. Debt service fund, $99 million is all for TID 5, correct? Or mostly it's for TID 5 because we don't have that big a debt. I want to just have make sure I understand correctly.
Right, I believe that was the refinance that we did as far as the Clean Water Fund loan,
Okay, so that's what the clean water, okay,
2021.
thank you.
My only comment is that having been on this board for more than a few years, it's hard to believe to see an audit in July rather than in, like we've gotten it in the past of September, October. It's, I think everybody who's done, can do this, your people, but our people here too. We've got some of the best in the whole state of Wisconsin.
The audit, the audit is a report card on
It's a
the
report.
village's financial health, and good financial health doesn't come by accident. So there's a lot of things to go around to the administrative financial side of things. So kudos. Go ahead.
Again, one of the positives that I see compared to previous years, I went through the whole packet. I only had 3 questions. All 3 were answered and all positive. So it's great. It's a good report.
Thank you.
I just think too, we've done a very good job tonight of patting our staff on the back and so forth, but I think that it also shows that we get called to task here as a village board from time to time, but we've made the tough decisions. We've supported the tough decisions that our staff has asked for, to add people, to make sure that they're able to function at a very high level. And there are times when that has not been appreciated. And I think that, to me, the proof is in the pudding. We as a board have to make those tough decisions to support the right staff so that we can continue to have audits that look like this, that allow us to function as financially well as we are, and to make sure that our village continues to function at that high level. So I hope that those hard decisions are appreciated as well.
Since we have Alex in the room, perhaps he could take a picture of our auditor and put that on the front page of the Racine Journal-Times? The thumbs up. It probably wouldn't get a whole lot of readers.
Paul, thank you for presenting us a good report card.
Very nice.
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, so after the thrilling audit presentation, we get to roll into public comment and input. Members of the public are welcome to provide comments on any matter. Please listen to the president to recognize you. State your name and address for the public record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. I have nobody signed up for public comment. I see nobody waving their hands in the in chambers to speak, so we will close public comment. So from there, we move to the consent agenda. Trustee Hewitt.
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt the items on the consent agenda.
Second.
I do have a question. Under number 3, we have St. George Serbian Church. Last time, we also had Delta. Did they not complete?
Delta was approved last board meeting
Oh, it was.
and
Okay.
SAPSAT.
We
Okay,
amended the motion at the last meeting, Anna Marie, so that Delta was included in that.
it was. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so for the consent agenda, up or down, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion carries. There should be a note that the president was not there for that village board meeting on June 27th, so I'm somewhat abstaining, I guess, from that approval on that item. Reports. Tourism Commission report. Trustee Clausen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The Tourism Commission met earlier today, and of course, we had very positive responses as we did the last meeting regarding the Watercross event and the bike race. It looks like they will have that booked again for next year. They were wonderfully pleased with the difficulty of the bike race, and that was a real positive for them. So it looks like they will be coming back. We've had a number of weekends of volleyball, and that was very high participation. Real Racine is now part or working with RCEDC. They've completed information regarding technology, and next they're going to be working with videos. Upcoming is a balloon fest in Waterford, and we encourage participation there. The hotel report, HD reported that the hotels in the area are very high capacity filled. He said they're running great. And I asked Carrie for a list of activities to come forward so that people who want to volunteer will be able to participate and support some of the events that are coming up.
Anything
Yes.
about bacon?
The Bacon Fest next weekend. We did not talk about it. It was covered last time.
Okay.
Item 7, announcements and/or recognition of village residents, employees, memorials, and non-political community events. Anybody have anything for number 7?
I think it's appropriate to make a comment that I believe that this meeting is being streamed live on YouTube.
Yes.
Again, a huge step. Small step for the village board, huge step for the mankind.
Yes, we're YouTube famous.
YouTube.
YouTube. And I haven't yet looked it up, but I think the village board website should have a clear direction on how to go to the YouTube and all the steps, for the community, because it's for the first time, but that's a huge step.
It's remarkable how good the instructions were. It literally walked you through, even Chris understood them, on how to set up your YouTube account. And it was really, Chris, our
Yeah,
village attorney did comment to me on how well done they were.
yes, I read his email, I saw the comment, but I'm
Yeah.
saying it's for the public out there,
Yep.
yeah.
They're easy to follow. They're on our Facebook page. They're on our website. They're very good. It's well done.
You too can be a YouTube celebrity.
That's right.
One last motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I hear a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say